When a Nevada nonprofit sells something like a hat or t-shirt to raise money, do they have to collect sales tax? I'm a mentor at SCORE Las Vegas, and I'd love it if you could point me and my nonprofit clients to a straightforward how to collect and pay sales tax in Nevada on fundraising items.
So this is going to blow your mind. This answer is going to absolutely blow your mind. And this shocked me. So when I first came to Nevada 20 years ago or so, I was working for an organization that had a gift shop set up. And as we were setting up the gift shop, one of the questions I had was, what do we need to collect sales tax? Like, what's the sales tax rate? And someone told me, there's no sales tax for gift shop sales for nonprofits in Nevada. And I said, no, that's stupid. You don't understand what you're talking about. There has to be. Every place in the country I've ever been has to collect sales tax on gift shop sales. And they're like, nope, not in Nevada. So we did the research, and I still didn't believe them. I made them get a letter from the state of Nevada.
You're such a stickler.
No, I didn't want to get hammered 10 years from now, and somebody goes, oh, by the way, you owe us $1 million in sales tax plus penalties. So in Nevada, and you can look it up, it's NRS 372.326, says that nonprofits don't have to pay sales tax or collect sales tax. So collect sales tax is the gift shop, it's fundraising items, it's anything. So the second part of that, after that line, the second part of that is that it's got to be educational, charitable, or religious. So those are the three categories: educational, charitable, and religious. It has to be one of those three categories, which catches people out a lot of times, because if your nonprofit doesn't fit nicely, and if it's a membership organization for helping people learn how to network, that's not charitable, probably not educational, and it's not religious, and the state will say, nope, sorry, you're not sales tax exempt. So just because you have a 501c3 doesn't mean you get that sales tax exemption for the for paying for things. Like you go to Office Depot and you buy paper and you don't want to pay a sales tax on the paper. As far as the other side of it, there's no process. So if you're doing this, if you're really curious, I might reach out to the tax office in Nevada and say, hey, we're doing this. We are also this. Just double checking that it's okay, because it's really, really unusual. Nevada, as far as I know, and I obviously don't know the laws in every single state in the U.S., as far as I know, Nevada is the only state where that is true.
Well, and that's a lovely idea. Thinking about reaching out to someone, I'm a little bit more, don't ask for what you can't stand the answer to, and almost don't raise their attention to this really stupid, lack of collection of sales tax, because I know it hurts, and, there's all sorts of arguments for, the state revenue generation and, all of the stuff that's needed, taxes are needed for. But I was like, oh gosh, why even bring it to someone's attention? I think it could become a headache. So I know that's not the appropriate answer, but I do want to just share.
And it's tricky too, because when you're setting up a nonprofit corporation in Nevada, right, there's no like special line for that. You do the same thing that every other corporation does. And so when you're setting up a corporation in Nevada, it asks you to create your Nevada tax account, set up the thing for sales and use tax, do the unemployment thing. So you have to go through all of these steps that apply to a regular for-profit corporation that may not apply to a nonprofit corporation. So there may be ways to get caught up in the process too, where like if you check the wrong box, or if you didn't understand specifically why they were asking the question, you may end up getting like a nasty note about why aren't you collecting sales tax? You get sales and tax use delinquency note. And at that point, that's when you can use the phone number on there to call and say, hey, I was looking at NRS 372.326, and it says, can you please explain to me how I'm delinquent on something that I'm not required to pay? And then maybe they'll help you, right?
I think one other thing to note with this question, and it's not tied to this, but some people get it confused, is unrelated business income tax is not the same issue we're talking about here. Totally different. So if you have questions about that, that's probably a separate thing, and definitely has nothing to do with the state sales tax process. So just make note of that.
That's right.
Nonprofit governance.
Nonprofit answers.
Nonprofit board.
Nonprofit management.
Nonprofit marketing.
Nonprofit resources.
The Alliance for Nevada Nonprofits presents Nonprofit Everything, the podcast about everything nonprofit, with your host, Andy Shurick and Stacey Wedding.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Nonprofit Everything. I'm here with my fantastic co-host, Stacey Wedding. I'm Andy Schuricht, and we're here to answer all of your burning nonprofit questions. The Nonprofit Everything podcast is a production of the Alliance for Nevada Nonprofits, and one of the best ways that you can support us is becoming an ANN member. So check out the Alliance for Nevada Nonprofits. The second best way you can support us is by thinking of a really interesting question to send to us. And we would be really excited to both answer your question and send you a sticker if you send us your address.
Woohoo!
Today's episode is sponsored by the HR Collaborative. The HR Collaborative was formed to help build nonprofit strengths through improved human resources. It provides professional development opportunities, networking, and sharing of best practices on HR issues faced by nonprofit organizations. The Collaborative meets bi-monthly. Membership is free and open to anyone who works for a nonprofit and has HR responsibilities. For more information or to attend an upcoming meeting, visit their website at www.hrcollaborativellv.org. Check out the Nonprofit Everything show notes for more information. I'm on the board of a children's program that relies on donations to cover a portion of expenses. We're running a Sponsor a Child's Learning type campaign, and our ED sent out letters in the fall soliciting donations from businesses in town, both SMEs and larger corporations. Well, we recently received a $3,000 donation from a major corporation, which is fantastic. The ED was asking for sponsors to donate $500, but that any amount would be welcomed. However, the next day I heard from this other board I sit on, it's a small community, and the same corporation donated $50,000 to that nonprofit. While I'm happy for both organizations, we'd obviously welcome a larger donation for the children's program. Is it uncouth or tacky to go back to the donor and ask for more?
Yes.
All right, next question.
Well, so I'm sorry to be so abrupt, but yeah, when I read this question, I totally sympathize because there's nothing worse than seeing that maybe you could have asked for more money. But I do think at this point it would come across as greedy. It would be a bit tacky. And I wouldn't recommend it. So I kind of would put this into the two categories: a lessons learned, and I've got some comments on that,
okay, and
an opportunity. But before I go into that, I'm very curious to know, is this something you would agree with me on, or do you think there's a chance to maybe ask for more money? And
I totally agree. And I mean, you know way more about this than I do, but my instinct is that there's a reason that you got $500 and another organization got significantly more than that. So, and there are lots of different reasons that it could be that, and it's maybe they don't know you as well as they know this other organization. Maybe you don't fit into the kinds of things that they want to give to. But going back to the donor and saying, we asked you for $500, you gave us more than that, but you didn't give us way more than that. It just seems like you're kind of, I don't know. Nobody's going to take that the right way.
No, there's no way. There's no soft way. And you know me, I'm all about trying to massage things with words, but I don't think there's any real soft way to do it.
No.
But here's what I do think. So first of all, you now know this organization knows that this donor and corporate donor has the capacity to give much larger gifts. So that's really good information. And it also kind of brings home for me that idea of research, because when you think about the question, they said that there was kind of an executive director, that just did a mass appeal for $500 sponsors. Mm-hmm. And I almost wonder if there's a chance, and I know it's a small organization, so this is probably me being a little Pollyanna, but if there was an opportunity to maybe just do a cursory look and say, hey, maybe a handful of the corporations, we want to just pull aside and look at if there's a different ask amount for them and do a little bit of research, not a ton, but go online, see what's available on their website. Perhaps there's other announcements from other nonprofits about gifts or in kind of local newspapers or whatever. But I just feel like doing this mass appeal like that and having corporations be asked for $500, which is a drop in the bucket for a corporation, feels like a missed opportunity. So I think one lesson learned is like perhaps there's a little bit of research that can be included and maybe a little bit more segmentation of, hey, let's pull aside a few of these and see if there may be capacity for larger gifts.
Right. And also, I mean, the way it was framed too is it was sponsoring a child, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, and that's a completely different question. And we,
Yeah.
you know how much we like answering the wrong question.
Yes, we do.
So if you've got a sponsorship package where you've put together like a sponsorship package and you've decided that this $500 is worth something, then maybe a corporation isn't the way to go after that.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going to talk about sponsorships for corporations, you really need to kind of take their tax situation into account and realize that for them, it's more about marketing and advertising and less about making a charitable deduction. So maybe you have something that's completely different for the corporations to sponsor. Maybe it's, I mean, we can't do this now, obviously, but maybe it's an event or it's a virtual event or it's something that they're getting something in value in exchange for that donation and not just writing a random check.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I think there is an opportunity here. So here's the opportunity. Besides maybe implementing some new practices to avoid something like this in the future, now they've gotten this $3,000 from this company. I think it's a great opportunity to say thank you and to ask the company, hey, just curious, why us? Like, why did you choose to make this to us? We know you get a lot of requests. And then to use that information to start building a relationship that perhaps could lead into a larger donation. I'm not sure it'll be $50,000 sponsorship or donation or grant, but something that over the course of the next several months, there's touch points, not asking for more money, but touch points of the thank you or let us report out on what we've been up to. Just some of the things that make a company, just like an individual, feel like you're not just there with your hands out grabbing for money all the time. And then when the next cycle comes to ask, having a conversation to see would they explore a potential larger partnership and then sharing that. So in my mind, this is just sort of the beginning of what could be a much larger partnership and relationship. So I'm excited for this organization. I think it's an opportunity to grow this and double it, triple it, in the future.
Yeah. So here's one thing maybe think about too is like we like to ascribe all of this like intelligent, like the corporations when they're giving these donations away that they're like testing you or they're like they have something in mind. And for $500, honestly, it's like they're just responding, right? It's like a direct mail. It's like this sounds fun. We can do that. So how much of this is really that they're testing you to see how you're going to respond and if you're going to thank them appropriately? And how much of it is just like, they're nice, they asked, we'll give them some money?
It could be, but here's the thing. The ask was for $500 or more, and the corporation gave $3,000.
They're like, it's not worth my time to write a $500 check.
Yeah. So, but to me, I go like, if they were looking to do this just as something really small, and who knows, maybe they had discretionary funding at the end of the year that they were looking for partners to get rid of some of it. There's so many different stories, but I think you don't know that until you actually have try to get to know them a little bit. And I think just a simple question of, hey, can we ask why us, like, might open the doors. And perhaps this nonprofit finds out just what you said. Hey, it was sweet. It touched the heart of one of our employees that makes the decision, and we just did it. And you kind of know then that it's less strategic, right, on the company's part, not like a $50,000 thing, but at least you know.
Okay, Stacey, I'm curious what trends you think we'll see in 2021 in the nonprofit sector.
Got a handful of thoughts, but God only knows, given what we just went through with 2020, I'm almost scared to answer this, right?
Zombie apocalypse, maybe like a meteor strike.
Yeah, something crazy.
Dinosaur ending meteor strike.
Yeah, you got to think of something crazy politically too, but let's not go there. So anyway, this is a little bit of a scary question just because of how things are and predicting things. But I think every trends report in 2020 probably was like threw up their hands. It was like, forget this, right? Yeah. So a handful of thoughts. I mean, from like a philanthropy side, I think we're going to continue to see individual donors, especially the smaller donors like those $250 and less. I think we will see that continue to be strong. I mean, every historical sort of research trend that was gathered has shown that in times of need, in times of crisis, and this is obviously a longer one, but when there is this sense of high need, high demand, individuals step up, and that those were the trend reports from 2020. So I think we'll continue to see individuals doing that. I personally think corporations, we're going to see either be like status quo or decrease. I just think many, especially in Southern Nevada, I guess I don't want to talk about the sector as, beyond Nevada, but I think given our reliance on the key industries here and gaming and tourism and such, that I do think we're going to see things that are probably a bit more status quo, if not decreased, especially, let's be real. How many corporations have you talked to that were so tired of spending money on galas, on filling gala tables? I realize that doesn't happen anymore. And I used to hear a lot of corporations saying, yeah, we're just sort of tired of all of these golf tournaments. We're tired of all these things. And they were already sort of talking about how they could decrease their involvement in those. So I think we're going to see more focus on that with corporations. And I think we're going to see a lot of corporations maybe use the pandemic as a great excuse to sort of stop those activities or kind of cut the budget around it.
I wish that were true.
I mean,
really
I do too.
I wish that were true.
You don't think that's the case, though?
They complain about golf tournaments and gala events, and then they turn around and do them anyway. They've got no plan. Like so many of them have no plan. They're okay having no plan because they don't see the benefit. So I wish we could see golf tournaments and gala events kind of go by the wayside, but I don't think that corporations are intelligent enough to know that that's a really stupid way to give money away. And I think they're going to continue to do that forever. It's going to be like we also, like here in Las Vegas, we expect to see this just huge surge once people can travel. I know, like, I don't like going outside I'm kind of I like being left alone.
Yes.
I don't like big crowds, but even I'm like, it'd be really cool to go do something with a lot of other people right now. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of pent up demand for entertainment and things. And so I think I wish we could make them go away, but I have a feeling gala events are going to come back, rip roaring.
I feel like that's going to happen in 2022. I think or at the end, like maybe the second half of 2021. Maybe. I guess I'm thinking more like the first half. Who knows?
Yeah.
The other thing, a couple other thoughts I had thinking about trends. I definitely I'm appreciative and really excited that DEI has revisited and there's a resurgence in conversations around it. I feel like there was a lot of talk around it in 2020. My hope, this is probably more of a hopeful trend, but my hope is that we're going to see more implementation of some of that conversation. I think people were trying to wrap their brains around what that looked like for how they operate and the culture of their organization and even recruitment of board members. And I really hope we see a more concerted effort and think we will. I mean, I don't think that topic's always been relevant. It just kind of came up, obviously, with some of the horrific acts that happened in 2020. So I think we're going to continue to see kind of a resurgence with DEI and new practices around it.
I'm so much more of a cynic than you are. I mean, we've been talking about the business case of DEI for 25 years, and nothing changes. I mean, it's
Andy.
I don't think that they, like, when the sort of your day-to-day reality of like running a business, like, just, it never really enters your consciousness until it's forced on you. Like we saw social justice organizations got a ton of money, right in the middle of the summer. Like there was a lot of money being moved to those organizations. And I'd be curious to see how long that lasted. I mean, obviously we're taping this early January. So obviously things are weird. And we may see money move from place to place. Right now, there are a whole bunch of corporations that are no longer giving political action committee money. They're just like, you know what, maybe politics isn't the way to spend it. I think that's short-lived. I think that's incredibly short-lived because 2 months from now, they're going to be like, but we really want this telecommunications bill to include this nonsense thing. So we really need to start giving money to these people that are going to do what we want. I mean, it just makes me so angry. Because and it goes into the whole ESG thing for for-profits as well, as they say, we're really committed to environmental and social and governance things, and we want to do these things better. And then their actions do absolutely the 100% opposite. If I would, I wish it were changed. I would love to issue a challenge to somebody to say, prove me wrong. Like, proof that my cynicism that we're just not going to continue to do the same dumb thing over and over again is actually just missing the point. But I don't know.
I really hope you're wrong on this one.
I hope I'm
I think
wrong
it's
too.
more of a hopeful. I think, like I said, I think I may be more hopeful and just hoping for that's what happens. Because you're right. It's, but you got to start somewhere. And I think at least, one of the things that gave me hope is I've talked to 2 different companies that have mentioned they've literally changed some of their process. There's a lot more that has to happen than just a change of a grant process, but they've changed it to include questions and to actually kind of evaluate organizations based on the diversity of their board members, of the clients they serve. And I was happy to at least hear that some change is being made, even if it's, at a snail's pace, but something is better than
even
nothing.
then, they're just like pushing their wishes down onto their nonprofit partners, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, it's so distasteful. It's like, we're going to do it the really crappy way, but we expect people we give money to be saints and angels.
Yeah.
Oh, it just,
I
can
know.
you tell I'm angry? Can you tell I'm mad?
I hit a sore spot. So
It's not this wrong kind of podcast. This is not an Andy rants.
I know, right? We need one of those though. It could be fun. But.
Nope. Nope.
Now, me, I've got 2 more trends I want to mention. One, technology, right? Like this is a Stacey kind of trend, but I think technology, as much as people are going to want that human connection again as soon as they're able to have it, I still think technology is going to continue to grow, explode, expand. There's all sorts of new movements and discussions being had just in the fundraising sector about artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence should be a huge component of any fundraising program to take staff away from doing the more mundane things or research that can be done with AI and instead actually move toward the true relationship building value of that human to human connection. So technology that takes away some of those kind of basic rote things and allows us to use our strengths and our capacity in other ways. I think we're going to continue to see that. And that gets me super excited for the nonprofit sector. And lastly, I would say 2020 was a year of reflection and evaluation once we got through the insanity of several things that happened during that year, right? And with that comes people reevaluating their priorities in life, in work, in free time. And so I do think we will continue to see transitions of people, maybe staffers doing side gigs, passion projects that perhaps because they realize maybe they're burned out from the nonprofit sector or something, so they want a side gig that maybe they can build up. I think we're going to see, but not giving up their job, right? Because they still need that income. But I think there's some, like, again, how are we going to kind of moderate and move away from the things that no longer are serving us? And I think board members, I've sadly, and maybe it's not sad, right? There's been several people I know who have served on boards that said, this pandemic gave me a chance to say, I just don't feel as passionate and committed to this organization anymore. And I think they'd be better served by someone who's new and fresh, and that can be healthy. I think that's healthy. It's also overwhelming when you're the nonprofit executive director.
No, I think the big trend I think I'm going to see is that the poor financial practices, people that have been kind of running by the seat of their pants, using gala events, even though they've known for years that was a really fragile way to raise money. Obviously the pandemic upended a bunch of business models in general. Mm-hmm. There was a question probably 6 months ago now about layoffs. Are layoffs a good idea? And at the time I said something that I kind of still stand by, which is layoffs are lazy. It's just you're freaking out about the balance sheet and you need to look at your business. And as this continues to go on, it gets longer and longer and longer, and we're relying on PPP loans, we're relying on grants from the state, we're relying on these others. We haven't thought about what the long-term impacts of the business are. We're just trying to keep our head above water, which is really the only thing you can do. But I have a feeling that's going to come bite everybody in the butt come around July or August, when all of a sudden things are different, things are drying up. The fact that we've had just record unemployment is going to finally that's going to finally affect all of the organizations that are doing basic needs stuff. I mean, luckily they're in a good place right now just because people mobilized. But at some point you end up with kind of like giving fatigue, and it's going to affect everybody, where like all of these decisions that were made early on are going to kind of come home to roost, and we're going to end up with like, oh gosh, what do we do now? So honestly, I mean, like Stacey's like, everything's going to be great.
I know.
And I'm like, it's going to be a bloodbath. I think we're going to see more nonprofits fail than ever before.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's going to be the ones that were already big and the ones that already had a nest egg and endowment money and investments and things like that are going to be able to weather the storm. They may, lose a whole bunch of people. They may have to focus in crazy ways. But all these tiny little organizations that have like an idea and want to run with the idea, it's going to get really, really hard to do that. I think we're going to see a big winnowing out of the number of tiny nonprofits just because it's just going to be impossible. I mean, even right now, like people that are doing a job and school and childcare all at the same time, you can't be done forever.
No,
it's absolutely like just mentally exhausting. And you realize at some point, we had one of the questions that we did today was about multitasking.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to not multitask when there's a 4-year-old in your house, like, because the 4-year-old doesn't care what you're doing. He needs what he needs right this instant.
right.
So it's just going to get harder and harder and harder. I think things are going to start to crack and break. I think we've seen some cracking and breaking already, and not in a good way. So hopefully we can survive as a species.
If you could, you know what? If you could all see my face, I have these like sad puppy dog eyes right now. I'm a little disheartened by Andy's trend prediction. I guess on my bad gloomy days, I tend to think like you do, Andy, but maybe today's an up day. So whoever's listening, if you need a dose of positivity, I'm your gal. And if you're in the rut and you want someone to commiserate with, Andy's your guy.
I'll just make everybody feel worse. That's my job. I just make everybody feel worse. But hey, it can't go on like this forever, right? There's a vaccine for the virus. It will be distributed at some point. Everyone will get it. Everything will kind of go back to not being as miserable as it is now. But it's a matter of getting through the next 12 months without completely losing your mind. I think that's the challenge for 2021.
So, Andy, do you want to know one of the new practices I'm doing for 2021?
Is it cooking more?
Oh, dear Lord. You know the answer to that. And anyone listening, I have no domestic bone in my body. So anyways, no, it is not cooking, although my husband sure wishes it were. No, I am going to extend my gratitude practice, and try not to roll your eyes because I'm sure you are. I started trying to rely on some gratitude thinking practice in 2020 because it was such a tough year. So 2021, I was like, you know what? I really need to just kind of continue to change my perspective when I'm feeling really down and out and negative and hopeless and all those things that the last year or so have brought. And so just trying to find little things. Like I was in the shower this morning and I was like, God, I'm so grateful for this hot water. So where I'm going with this is I am incredibly grateful for an amazing co-host that just makes this fun. And even though, it's work to sometimes research answers to your questions or really give it some thought, at least on my end, because I'm like a planner and like have all my answers like written out. Andy isn't quite the same. But anyways, with that said, like I'm grateful for Andy and making this fun. I'm super grateful for all of you listeners and for you just caring enough to listen and finding this valuable enough. That means a lot, and for sending us questions. And last but not least, I'm grateful for Ann. Alliance for Nevada Nonprofits is the one that really gave birth to this podcast and continues to make it possible. So thanks to Ann. Check them out if you haven't. And let's make it a great year, or at least a better year.